I'd like to call to order the June 13th regular meeting of the Peters Township Planning Commission. Roll call.
Mr. Smith will not be here. Rochelle
Coral here.
is here.
Conrad Solis.
Conrad.
Here.
Rocco.
Here.
Mr. Mills.
Here.
Here. And Ted will not be here.
Next action is approval of minutes. Any comments on the May 9th, 2019 minutes? Hearing none, need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Here, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reports and correspondence?
None.
None. Site plans or subdivisions filed for review?
We have two. One, Broski final plan. It's a lot line shift on Sugar Camp Road, and we have revised site plans for the Subaru dealership on Route 19. They're adding an addition and vehicle display area.
Whatever happened to the Cadillac dealership?
They weren't doing well there.
Any comments on the agenda? Any audience comments for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing no old business, we'll move on to new business. The first item is the Planning Commission recommendation for the site plan, final plan, Thomas Road Resubdivision. This plan was filed by PBE, which I am an employee, and I will be recusing myself from this discussion. Mr. Mills will lead it.
Okay, so this is the final plan, Thomas Road Resubdivision. Ed, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I will, and this is a recommendation to council. This is a final subdivision plan, so council will have final approval. What we're looking at here is, I refer to it as the Lutz property. Wesley Lutz owned this 27.75 acre tract, and he lived on this 2-acre tract right here. Mr. Ted Taylor recently purchased the 27.75 acres. This property here, which is lot 2 on the plan, is owned by Wesley Lutz's daughter, which her name is Sandra Triplett. And what this plan is simply combining 2 acres off of the Lutz larger tract and combining that 2-acre parcel with the former Wesley Lutz home. The plan is for that home to be torn down and a new home to be built on 4 acres. Eventually, the Planning Commission will be seeing a subdivision plan coming in for new residential development on the remaining 25 acres. So this is a simple re-subdivision. It's shifting a lot line, giving lot 2 an additional 2 acres, creating a 4-acre parcel. Staff's recommending that the Planning Commission recommend council approve it, subject to those 8 conditions listed in my report.
Any audience comments on this matter? Any commissioners' comments?
Are they going to continue to use a septic system, or do they have to tap into a pumping system?
I think the plan at this point is to use the existing septic system, which has been recently checked out by the Washington County Sewage Council, and it has been found that it is still working properly. But I think, and maybe Caleb or Mr. McLaughlin, who's here tonight, I don't know if they plan on tapping that into the sewer.
It sounds like it's working fine. And
I don't know the answer to that, though. Did I answer it right?
yes.
So there's no requirement that new construction or something's torn down that they have to tap in?
No, as long as that existing system is working, they can continue to use it.
Okay. But now the future plan for the Ted Taylor plan, is that serviced by sewage?
That will have public sewer.
That will. Now, when that's created, could we require the new homeowner to get public sewer rather than a septic system?
I don't know that we can require it, but there is a rule that if it comes within I'm going to say 150, if the new sewer comes within 150 feet of the new home, then I think it's required to tap it.
And that's from the...
That's the Peters Township sanitary.
Okay, gotcha. Any other commissioner comments? Motion, Dave?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend final plan Township subdivision to council.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Very good. That'll bring us to Planning Commission approval revised site plan. I believe this thing is going to be Searly Eye Care at 220 East Sorali, pardon me, at 220 East McMurray Road.
This is a planning commission approval. This is the final step in the process for the Sorali parking lot expansion at 220 and 222 East McMurray Road. The properties are currently zoned mixed-use activity district. There's a skin doctor and an eye care doctor located on the parcels. As you can see on the existing plan, existing conditions plan here, I mean, they're right up next to one another there along East McMurray Road. We're looking here at this most northern parcel for the majority of this application. What they're proposing is an expansion of the existing parking lot to allow for 9 additional parking spaces at 57 degrees along the backside of the building here, with a buffer between the parking and the adjacent property line that is also zoned mixed-use activity district. A little bit of that parking expansion would then cross over onto the address for 222 East McMurray and tie into their existing parking, kind of creating a one-way circulation in this direction. Staff is recommending approval of the application subject to our 10 conditions on our staff report. The applicant and their engineer received a copy of the review comments from Gateway Engineers as of this morning. So they have to look through those, finalize their plan per those comments. They've already addressed the majority of staff's comments based on the review letter we provided them about a week ago. So we're moving right along with them, but we are recommending approval based on our 10 conditions. The applicant's engineer is here to answer any questions.
Wasn't it about a year or so ago?
Yes.
When Dr. Mark.
I apologize. I forgot to mention that. They did receive site plan approval for parking lot expansion. That date is in October of 2016. That approval expired, so effectively this is
nothing proceeded from when Dr. Sorrell was here, so
Correct.
this is just resuming what he...
Yeah.
what
It's
never
effectively a
got done.
reapproval with some minor changes.
And it looks like the construction has already begun.
So on this portion here, this building at 222, they received building permit approval for an addition to that building. They did not have to come to planning commission. They already met all their parking requirements, required no additional site improvements. So we allowed for them to, as their construction entrance, to kind of gravel this out, keeps construction traffic out of the main parking lot. Conservation District was okay with that. We're working with them just to kind of ease our way into this.
And so that their site plan approval expired?
Good for 1 year. 1 year. If nothing proceeds, it expires after 1 year.
And you did note there were a couple adjustments to the plan. Mr. Hartman, would you mind enumerating some of those adjustments?
You'd like to? Good evening. Jamie Harshman, with Harshman CE Engineers.
Like a laser
All
ball.
the very good. So with the building addition, which is about an L shape right here on the back, we had to adjust this aisle over maybe 5 feet or so. It used to come up a little more midway between the two buildings. So that had to move over a little bit. We added these 2 spaces right here, which come in against this building. It used to be the parking lot just came straight across the back. They wanted to fit 2 more in here. We were able to make that work. So those 2 were added. A little kind of turnaround place here. So if you pull into this spot, you can back and come out this way. So there were some kind of minor changes, I'll call them, to the layout of this. In addition to that, with the addition that's under construction, we had to upsize the stormwater management system. So we originally had an underground tank here, an underground tank here. We've increased the capacity of those to handle also the roof area of the addition. as well as there was a little bit of increase in the paving for the parking lot as well. So it's exactly the same concept as before. It's just a little more pipe, a little more tank underground. So those were the substantial changes to the plan. Also, I think previously we didn't have this buffer, planted buffer shown. We've now got that shown and depicted on the plan because of the use behind the property. We've got 3 deciduous trees and I want to say maybe 60 shrubs or so. They're called out on the plan per your ordinance.
If I'm not mistaken, the smallest of all the units is right behind the parking lot. Is that Heritage or?
Heritage Meadows Apartments.
And it might even be just garages, not even.
Correct.
It is, and there's actually some trees back there and such, but I mean, we have the room and the ordinance calls out
Yeah,
for it, so
good.
we've shown the plantings in there. We just today got comments from Gateway. I read through those tonight, and I believe we'll be able to address all those with notes and some more detail on the plan. For example, some tops and inverts and pipe sizes and slopes that aren't entirely detailed on this plan. We'll be adding that. Also make note that they asked for a cross-access easement. I think that's a great idea. Even though these are commonly owned by the same person, since we have cross-traffic, we'll be getting a cross easement recorded. Another note regarding the proximity of some of the utilities and the storms as they cross, and the tank that's right here. My intention is to have that access easement also include those storm functions so that there's a shared rights and responsibilities for those. And I believe everything else was pretty straightforward in Gateway's comment letter, so I've got no problem with them being conditioned to any approvals tonight. One, I guess, note I'll make, I do expect that we may put some lighting up on this site. It's not included on this plan. We have the note on here requiring that any lighting's got to go through Ed and Set with photometrics to prove compliance. So we're working with a consultant right now, but that may be a condition.
It is a condition.
As well, so that would be great. Any other questions for me about the layout?
The angled parking spaces, I think they're 9 by 15, 57 degrees. Is that correct size for our ordinance? It seems a little.
On the initial plan, they were labeled at 9 by 15. They would comply. They're the 9 by 18. They meet our ordinance requirements. Yeah.
Correct.
And then the directional signage, is that subject to your approval? If you'll
Yeah.
add it, and then you can approve or deny that as well?
Correct.
And then the 2 storm systems, were they new or were they rehabbed?
They do not exist.
Do
right
not
now.
exist. Understood that.
They were on the original plan we got approved a year ago. We've just upsized them basically
Got it.
because we're handling some more areas. Another note, we did secure a GP for the outfall on the southern tank last year, so I think obviously you made that point, so we do have that in hand. And as of last week, I got a verbal from the Conservation District. They've approved the ENS. They asked for one more final copy of the set, so I should have that letter for you shortly.
Are you over an acre of disturbance? You're 0.51, 0.52, but.
No, we're well under an acre disturbance. Yeah, and we've even included the building addition in the area disturbance because it's happening at the same time.
Any other questions? Comments? The audience comments? Hearing none, you have a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Sorelli parking lot expansion be approved according to staff's memo dated June 5th, 2019.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. That brings us to our third new business item. Planning Commission recommendation, final plan Westbury, Churchill and Venetian Roads.
Planning Commission should be familiar with this plan. The preliminary plan was approved by Planning Commission on March 14, 2019. The request before the Commission this evening is for final plan recommendation to Council. This property is zoned Village Residential VR. It's in the Hackett area of Peters. The Westbury preliminary and final plan application submittals included existing condition survey, phase 1 environmental site assessment, wetlands, delineation report, geotech report, stormwater, and a grouting plan. This area of Peters has a shallow mine cover on part development area. And we worked with their geotechnical engineers, and they're going to be grouting, I forget the exact number of lots, that there'll be several lots that need to be grouted, as well as part of the public road infrastructure will be grouted as well. This property is 25.96 acres. The total lots on the final plan is 69 lots. That's 2.6 lots per acre. That's 12 less lots than what was approved on the preliminary plan. As we worked through the final details, we had to eliminate some lots. They're setting aside 5.73 acres of open space. That open space will be dedicated to the Westbury Homeowners Association. They're also, the builder in this plan will be Ryan Homes. They've committed to putting a playground in for the folks that will eventually move into this neighborhood. The main access will come off of Churchill Road, which is a state road. They have submitted for their highway occupancy permit. There is adequate site distance where Westbury intersects with Churchill. The Barnett Street, it's an existing street that comes in off of Venetia Road. Seth's got it highlighted there. That's a very narrow existing street. There's not good turning radius where it intersects with Venetia. The plan is, and I think Planning Commission is part of the preliminary plan, as well as we've run it past council already, we're going to turn Barnett Street into a one-way in-only street from Venetia Road into Westbury. Can I highlight? It'll be a one-way street from Venetia Road out here all the way to here. Be one-way in-only. Some other... Talked about the open space. There's 2 stormwater management facilities proposed. Can you get to those? One down here close to Churchill Road and one over here on the south side of the plan. Those 2 facilities will be detention facilities. They'll only have water in rain events. Those facilities will be turned over to the township for ownership and maintenance responsibilities. The Westbury plan is in the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority watershed. There will be public sewer service to all the lots in the Westbury plan. We have, Township has approved their planning modules. Those are under review by the DEP. I talked a bit about the geotechnical report. This is an area of Peters that has a shallow mine cover, and we've worked hard with Gateway Engineers, has a geotech engineer that has worked with Westbury's geotechnical engineers, which was Murray Associates, and I think we're all comfortable with how the site's being graded and where grouting will need to occur. There is a note on the final plan that will be recorded that is encouraging all future buyers to get mine subsidence insurance. Even I've learned that, shallow cover, a lot of cover, it doesn't really matter. So subsides can occur anywhere. All the lots in the development will be subject to the $1,500 per lot traffic impact fee. Those fees are collected at the time of building permit. Ryan Homes is the proposed builder in the Westbury plan. They're talking about homes in the 1,800 to 3,600 square foot area, in the 300 plus to 390 plus price range. I don't know if there's any other things I need to go over. The engineer for Westbury is here tonight, but staff is recommending that, Planning Commission recommended council that we approve the Westbury final plan, subject to those 15 conditions listed in my memo to you.
Sidewalks?
Sidewalks throughout the entire neighborhood.
Okay. Both
On
sides or
both
one
sides
side?
of the street.
Both sides?
Could you pan out a bit, sir? We did give them a little bit of a break on Westbury Drive. There's only lots on one side of this road, and so Westbury come in and only have sidewalks on this side. The remaining roads within the plan will have sidewalks on both sides of the street.
And why are there only houses on one side? I just missed why.
Just,
Well,
there's, Jason, go ahead.
I was just going to say, due to
Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Jason Kubiak with DDS Companies. So there's only houses on that one side of the street. I mean, mainly due to environmental features and stuff on the other side that we just didn't want to impact.
Okay. And is that part of the open space that's included in that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
The detention areas, how much of the 5.73 acres does that take up, would you say? It's not part of the open space?
It's not allowed to be counted. Yeah.
No, okay.
Stormwater facilities
it's-
cannot be counted.
No,
towards
they're their
open
own. They're their own
Okay.
entity.
And then that circle that's shown in the middle for what's shown now is a playground?
The tot lot.
The top lot is right here.
Yeah, how much acreage is this? I'm looking at this picture here that has like
Oh.
the circle in the middle. Is that where the playground would be, or?
I think, are you looking at like the top lot rendering?
He's looking
I'm
at
looking
the-
at the pretty pictures.
Yeah, that was a rendering done some time ago. We
Okay.
haven't yet got a complete design of their top
Okay.
lot, but it is in like one of the larger, more accessible open
Yeah,
space
Ryan Homes
areas.
will be providing the actual tot lot layout.
Okay.
And that, does
right up here,
space have
yeah.
a parcel,
Yeah.
a number on it?
Yeah,
That's where it'll be.
yeah, it'll be in this
Right.
open space right in here.
And tot lots are allowed to be within open space?
Yes.
Just asking.
Okay.
We definitely encourage that.
So the area that, where there's going to be no houses built because of environmental purposes for that, how much of the open space is that? Does that take up? Is that half of it, a quarter? I'm just trying to figure
It's-
out,
I
when you
mean,
take that out, how much other space is there?
No, it's probably. I mean, it's probably a quarter of it.
A
I'd
quarter?
say. Maybe slightly over.
Will a school bus be able to navigate through the neighborhood?
It could, but I mean, right now the idea is that the school bus will be just picking up at the end of Westbury and Churchill.
The answer is yes. The school bus can.
Yes.
Through the plan.
Yes.
But you're saying it will not.
At this point in time, the school district is telling me that
They just want to,
the school bus stop will be
pad's going to be right there.
right here.
Yeah.
Where?
That's where they want the school bus stop to be.
And then how far is that
All the way
for
out.
this house to walk? How far is that?
It's not that far, you know.
But it can.
It can. Yeah, I mean, it can. But that's, you know, in coordination with the school district, that's where they said that that's where it's going to be for now.
The school bus stops often change. Right now, they're planning on right there, but I'm sure once the neighborhood's built out and parents get involved, they're
Yeah.
Yeah.
gonna be picking up the kids at the door.
the ability to maneuver through there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, emergency vehicles, fire.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it'll accommodate all that. And I failed to mention that there's another important future connection here to the 350-plus acre Miller property. So that'll provide another way to get to Nisha Road or Bebout Road at some point in the future.
And then we're also dedicating that cul-de-sac down at the bottom there, too.
That's right. This area of Hackett, we had a lot of dead-end streets where garbage trucks would have to come in and then back out. So we're trying to fix that. Here, where they're dedicating some area for the township to put in a little cul-de-sac. And here at the end of Barnett, they're putting in a cul-de-sac to facilitate public works vehicles, garbage trucks, et cetera, getting in and being able to turn around.
Is there a cluster mailbox?
Yes.
plan?
Yes, and it's
Here you go. Top one.
cluster mailbox will be right in this area here.
And why is that rather than individual?
Postal Service
Post office.
requires all new residential developments to have cluster mailboxes.
That's becoming more and more common everywhere.
Number 7,000.
Seth, what type of open space is required for this particular project?
So when they initially came before us, the Village Residential District did not have a specific percentage of gross tract areas required as open space. We have since changed that, but because they came in before we changed that, we could not hold them to a standard. So we worked with them as best we could to get them what we feel staff is a reasonable amount of open space, usable by the residents. We have those key areas there along Westbury Drive, here and here, and then this big open space.
And what is the current requirement just for?
25%.
So we're at 20 roughly, somewhere
Yeah.
in there. A little under.
Little 22, I think.
Yeah, we're not too far off from what's required now.
And when you say the requirement now, at least this is just more for my educational purposes, is 25%. Is that 25% of usable land or 25%
Gross
that people
tract
could actually walk on?
Gross.
25% gross.
But like the stormwater facilities can't be counted towards it.
Right.
They can use steep slopes and wetlands as part of their open space, though.
So steep slopes. What would you say the percentage of this 5.73 is actually usable, that people could actually walk on?
I mean, I would say most of it.
That area down along
This one,
Churchill
yeah.
Maybe not so much.
is not.
But the
it's
rest
more
of it,
a-
I mean, aside from that piece, the rest of it is usable. I mean, we have these nice areas here and here, and then where the plot lot is that's all usable.
It's definitely functional space.
Yes.
And the open space down along Church is more for environmental protection.
Right.
Any other commissioner comments? Staff comments or audience comments? Hearing none, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend Westbury final plan and include with it the 15 conditions in the letter of June 7th.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That brings us to item D on new business, planning commission recommendation, T.A. Robinson Family LP variance. This is for the request of a drive-through in the Valley Road mixed-use corridor, 330 Valley Road Road.
I should just say on the record, I would have told somebody ahead of time, but I thought I was just acting as an alternate tonight. My law firm used to represent T.A. Robinson, it was years ago. I don't think that there's a conflict, but I just wanted to put it on the record if anybody is concerned about it. It was
Thank you, Michelle.
a number of years ago.
Yeah. So a little bit of a different item here. This application will be going before the zoning hearing board on Tuesday night. Like Rocker said, they're requesting a variance to allow for a drive-through as a permitted accessory use to what we refer to as a limited/counter service restaurant. More commonly, it's like a cafe type use in our Valley Brook mixed-use corridor. Currently in our zoning ordinance, the only principal use that is permitted at drive-throughs and accessories is a bank in that district. This is on a piece of land that is owned by the township. The applicant, T.A. Robinson, recently entered a lease agreement with the township to develop this property for that use, specifically a cafe drive-through with trailhead access, with parking for that trailhead access. There is a large stormwater facility located on the site right now that restricts the development of the site pretty significantly. We feel as staff that the applicant has done a good job of addressing the design constraints of the site while accommodating for the drive-through and providing a high-quality development that we feel doesn't have any negative impact on any surrounding properties or the character of the neighborhood. Based on the design constraints, we're considering that the hardship on the site, which is one of the requirements to obtain the variance. And we feel that, or per the applicant, I guess, more or less, their claim is that the drive-through allows them to reduce the effective number of required spaces for the cafe itself, allowing for additional spaces to be utilized by trailhead patrons. But primarily as staff, we feel the design constraints of the site really present the hardship of the applicant, and we feel that they've done a pretty significantly good job of addressing those constraints with the high-quality development. The consultant for the applicant is here tonight. Staff is going to be recommending approval to the zoning hearing board on Tuesday night. You're more than welcome to provide your own recommendation to the zoning hearing board if you wish. But we just wanted to bring this before you as a matter of new development and a township-owned property in the township. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Russell.
they're going to be setting up our PowerPoint. And as Seth had mentioned, once again, my name is Mike Wetzel with the firm Victor Wetzel Associates, and I have Chris Pacadelis. And we're here tonight representing Tom Robinson and the T.A. Robinson Family Limited Partnership. And we're here tonight really for the concept plan review, as well as the variance request in regard to the allowing a drive-through accessory window within the property. And as Seth had mentioned, in the, I'll say, 15 months, 16 months that Tom Robinson has been working with not only staff but also council in regard to a parcel that is owned by Peters Townships that's used for a stormwater management facility within the township. Tom owns properties on both sides of the existing parcel that's there, and really what they've worked out since May 1st was to do an agreement to allow him to lease the property to be able to do a small cafe on the site and to allow parking within the property and trailhead parking for the Arrowhead Trail. We're located within the Valley Brook Road mixed-use corridor, and as once again Seth mentioned, under the limited counter service restaurant, we were asking for a drive-through window facility. But really, before we kind of go through that, just kind of introduce you to the site and some of the existing conditions, and also kind of go in a little bit better detail in regard to the site plan. In regard to the existing site, we have Valley Brook Road, located right along and through here. Brush Run that's running through this section of the site, the Arrowhead Trail through here, Mapletown Drive located through this section to the site. The site, which is located right along and through here, is 1.3 acres in size. As I mentioned, it's in the Valley Brook mixed-use corridor zoning district within the site. Really the school and the expansion is being done right along and through this area. So you can kind of see we have the mix of office buildings within the site over and through here, residential that occurs up through this section, as well as residential on top of the hill through this portion of the site. As we get in a little bit closer detail, once again, Valley Brook Road and the 1.3 acre parcel area. There is access into the site located right in through here with an existing gravel drive that comes down to the site through here. Existing building, and it's more of a kind of a brick block type of building throughout the site, and some existing concrete pad area located beyond the section. Really, you can see through here, this is the existing detention facility that takes into account of the site. And as I mentioned about that detention facility is about 0.58 acres in size, or 42% of the overall site that occurs within this section. And once again, you can see the proximity of Brush Run and the Arrowhead Trail located right along through this section of the site. Now, just to kind of show you some pictures, once again, access off of Valley Brook, the gravel drive. You can kind of see the type of building that's there right now, and the types of materials, and really some of the brush and debris that has accumulated on the site. Valley Brook Road through here, once again, the building within the site. This is a view from the site over in the adjacent parcel. That's being Tom Robinson has been maintaining that parcel on his own. Kind of makes it more of a kind of a park-like type of setting associated with the site as you drive down Valley Brook through this section, and then once again looking up the Valley Brook Road and the building through this section. The existing detention facility is located right off along through this portion of the property. And once again, the condition of the detention facility along and through here, and then beyond the detention facility, the view down in the valley, overall looking into Brush Creek located through this portion. Now, when we look at the site again through here, the high point is Valley Brook Road, drops in elevation down through this section all the way down to Brush Creek. You can kind of see the outline of the detention facility through the 2-foot contour, and this is really the dam work or the breastwork associated within the site area. Contourized, once again, rising up in elevation, low point down along and through this area of the site. When you do look at some of the utilities within the overall site, we have an existing electric line that traverses the site through this section, a dual sanitary line that comes through this portion, and once again, the dash of the existing detention facility that's about 0.58 acres or 42% of the site. So you can kind of see how big of an area that takes in regard to the site, in regard to really the hardship and working with the existing detention facility. And that detention facility is really more for the homes on top of the hill off of Valley Brook Road.
Does it ever fill up?
No, to tell you the truth, there's really ever any water that goes into the facility. There's a couple of concrete channels. There's an outfall pipe right along and through here, concrete channel and through here, another concrete channel. But there's really very little water that goes into this overall detention facility. So the goal is to, as part of
floodplain?
There is a floodplain. It's more located down along and through this section. We don't have any impacts with our site. We're high enough within that portion of the site. But we do get into some small little sections over and through here, not the excuse me, that we're going to necessarily be impacting within the overall site. So you can kind of see it's kind of an existing condition in regard to the site, really not created as a hardship by the now the leasee, with the township still owning the overall parcel. The idea was to really, for Tom to kind of take over this piece, maintain it as the character that he has over and through here, and really kind of create I'll say a specialty little township scenario where you can get access to the Arrowhead Trail off of this piece and really provide a small little neighborhood cafe. Nothing in regard to nowhere in regard to a Starbucks type of scenario, because they wanted to have it as more of a local flavor associated with the cafe in itself. Now, when we look at the proposed plan that Seth showed earlier, we'll be working off of the existing gravel drive along and through here. There'll be access into the site. They'll come down and through here for 13 parking spaces that would be built along and through here. But the way that's kind of unique in regard to the site is the drive-through lane will actually work itself all the way around the detention facility, employee parking over and through this section where we'll have the order window located through here. Plenty of area for stacking if that does come through this section. Then they'll continue all the way along and through here. We'll create a separation barrier curb section along and through here, as well as with a small fencing area to limit the, I'll say, conflict between the maneuverability that's happening in the parking lot and the drive-through lane. They'll be able to then line up here where we'll have the drive-through window in itself. This will be the actual cafe building through this area. It's about 1,500 square feet in size. We'll have the deck over in the back area. The whole idea is, once again, is Tom to make this really more of a beautification associated with this area. And really what we'll end up doing is, and as you've probably already seen driving through, he's already started cleaning up the site, removing a lot of the weed and junk trees and shrubs. The idea is to create more of a kind of a rain garden, wetland plantings within the detention facility in itself, and along the breastwork provide a walking trail and sitting areas within the plan to be able to look down into the landscaping. It will be a high landscaping area, bench sections within the plan, and then one of the nice things is we'll be providing access to the Arrowhead Trail via this direction. If you've ever seen the, I'll say the wooden bridge up near where Woody Welsh did the single family, it would be very similar in character in regard to that type, because there is a great elevation. We'll need to be adding steps through here to tie into the trail. And the way that's designed is if you do have a bike, you have the steps, but you build a ramp that's right adjacent with all the steps. So anybody that would like to then come down and do the cafe, they're able to wheel their bike down through here, cross. There'll be a fitness trail eventually that will connect within the site. But as they come down along through here, what they'll do is we'll have a crossing scenario before the stacking occurs. For the order window, they'll be able to have bike parking along through here, access into the main door through this section. We'll also have bike racks located along through this area, and we'll also have a bike repair station associated with this plan. So it's really going to be trail friendly in regard to using of the bikes and encouraging users to come down to this cafe. We'll once again have parking associated with the plan, ADA parking through here with the crosswalk along to this section which is leading into the main portion of the overall site. So the idea is, once again, really provide a high-end look associated with this area. Now, as I mentioned, as I go through, just to kind of go through some of the architecture, this is a little bit more of the detailed architecture. This is where we would have the drive-through window, the main entrance, and then working the kitchen area in itself and counter space. This will all be kind of the dining and sitting area and restroom facilities within the plan. And you'll see in the elevations we have this wall along and through here. This is the wall that looks out into the detention facility as well as over towards the Brush Creek and Arrowhead Trail. This will just be a wall of windows, or the garage door type windows that can be rolled up within the plan in itself. And then the rear deck area looking out into the I'll say now more of a rain garden scenario. So some of the architectural views associated with it. This is the view from Valley Brook Road. There'll be the one door located through this section, windows, and more of a complementary brick type of facade. This is the view down into the detention facility and towards Brush Creek. Once again, working the large amount of windows and kind of garage door type facilities. Be a large fireplace within the plan itself, and really the main entrance into the cafe. This would be the deck area looking out over the detention facility, and then once again this is the drive-through and its mixture of once again getting away from the box, providing some very unique roof lines, coverings over the pickup window in itself. So with that all said, what we're looking at is, going to the zoning hearing board, is a variance in regard to section 440.400, which is then figure VB-1, accessory drive-through use. As required that only a bank is permitted to have a drive-through use within the site. We're proposing for our limited counter restaurant site to have that drive-through. Once again, located through here, so it's not facing Valley Brook Road associated with this plan. And what we have is our hardship associated with is, once again, the location of the detention facility and how much land that is actually taking up, and really what's available to actually where we can put in the building. So we're working with that in regard to the plan. We also have, with that, it will limit the amount of parking that would be needed to actually go into the cafe for the people that are using Valley Brook Road within this mixed-use corridor, and leaving that parking associated with the trailhead area. As we kind of presented through the plan and highlighted on the from staff's comments, the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or the district, and the proposed drive-through window will not face towards Valley Brook Road, limiting its impact along the main road. So once again, we're kind of looking at showing you this concept plan and looking at your kind of recommendation in regard to the variance request to the zoning hearing board next week. Yes, sir.
Question. The order window at the bottom.
Yes.
Is where they place the order.
Yes.
And they would proceed with the arrows.
Yep.
To go to the pickup window.
Right in through here.
But it looks like as they exit, as they proceed past the pickup window, they're going into oncoming traffic, coming in off of Valley Brook or coming into the parking lot, and they would literally have to cross through incoming traffic to get out.
Correct. What we'll end up having is, and this is something we reviewed with staff, is to provide really more of a stop scenario in through this section to, A, make sure that for any incoming traffic within the site, they would have the right of way within the plan.
Who's that?
Somebody who is coming in off of Valley Brook Road into the site. That's what I mean they.
Because of the short distance, and if I was coming from, let's say here, on Valley Brook Road, going towards 19, I would be making a left to enter this facility.
Yes.
I would be waiting for an opening for oncoming traffic coming the other way to make the left into the restaurant. If a car simultaneously is trying to exit while the other car is trying to enter, he doesn't have enough, there's not enough room to sort of stack where can he get out of the way? Is there enough room on your this property to get out of the traffic on Valley Brook Road?
Yes, yeah, when we have the abilities, we'll have a 40-foot throat opening along through. They'll be able to have then stacking along through this section. Once again, we'll be having a stop scenario. So it's, once again, that's why we have so much ability to have additional stacking within this section of the pickup window, that it becomes more of a clear scenario when no traffic is coming in. That's when they'll be able to release out.
Well, but is the line of sight from that stop sign after I picked up my food to Valley Brook Road, will I be able to see
Yes.
the car trying to turn
Yes.
in?
Once again, the earlier pictures showed that there was quite a bit of trees within that area. We'll be really opening up this whole intersection along through there for sight distance. We'll also need to get an HOP associated with this access. It'll be reviewed by PennDOT.
You're down 10 feet. It seems like you're at 950 at your cafe and 960.
Yeah, there's an elevation change that does take place along and through there, so there'll be the transition in regard to grades.
Do you think about this as well? You're coming around, is there any way you could put, and I know it might not be as good for the efficiency of the restaurant, so let's think about this. If I'm driving around, or I'm parked on that little area, those 5 spots, well, I guess I'm not.
Over and through here?
Yeah. I'm going to get stuck behind cars to try to get out of there.
Well, technically, what those will be more employee parking at that point.
I'm going to get stuck. What if I just make a right turn and go around and I'm stuck? I mean, you got to expand that so you get 2 cars through there.
Well, what we can look at is to see if we can widen the section
that
through there.
area, or put the where they stop and talk up, but I guess you want the queuing.
Yeah, we were looking to have more of the queuing down along and through this section, through here.
I mean, my concern is I'd be really annoyed if I'm sitting there waiting for people to get, I don't know what you're going to sell, their sandwiches or coffee or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I get stuck. Eddie, the second thing I have a fundamental problem with is the township's thoughts of leasing a property like this. Why would we not just convey it and sell it? We're not allowed. The liability on this site's going to be huge. One is, if we look at the lease, it's only like $1 million liability policy. I mean, you got the bridge issues, you got pipes, you got cars going through there.
We looked at that.
This could be a lot of problems for the township.
We looked at that, and it was very restrictive to sell, and that's why we went through the lease. Can you expand on that at all?
So, yeah, hang on one second. Can you go back to the slide that shows the overall picture?
Neighborhood?
And keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's fine. So, all right, so, yes, my name's Chris Pasadelis. I represent T.A. Robinson Family Limited Partnership. This whole process began initially when it became apparent, when Tom was looking at a separate development, when it became apparent that there was an interesting need of the township to own a piece of property that Tom owned. So I don't have the pointer, but if you look, all right, thank you. This property here is owned by the Robinson Family Limited Partnership, and it comes around here, and then it goes back here, and it goes around in this area here. There are certain needs or certain issues related to I don't have an exact off the top of my head, the streams or the, I can't remember.
Erosion and sedimentation control.
Yeah, that's exactly.
MS4 station.
Stormwater.
And some DEP, there was a need also for perhaps for Peters Township to own, to own this piece here. It would benefit them because it's along this stream bed here. And so there was conversation about Tom selling or swapping this property here in exchange for this property here. And part of the consideration would be that Tom would restore this retention pond and turn it into something that was a little bit more appealing. We went through that process and ran into issues associated with the Donated and Dedicated Property Act. where it really wasn't a possibility for the township to sell that piece of property. But it was a requirement that Tom Robinson donate this property over here. So in working through the process, we came up with a lease instead, a very long-term lease, where we would, as part of our desire to beautify the property, initially this was designed to create access over to Arrowhead Trail, create parking for people who wanted to use it, to create a repair station. That building that's on the property now is in really poor condition, and so maybe restore that building in some way. And so the investment is way in excess of $250,000 to do all of this. And in addition, Tom will be granting and conveying this property over here. So we tried to come up with a process or something that would make sense, not only to make the property more valuable for the township, but also to make it valuable for Tom in doing this. Now, this cafe is really, it's a coffee shop, and it was extended to more or less allow for the drive-through, which was created to allow for a traffic flow that wouldn't erode so many parking spaces for the people coming to use the trail. We were trying to preserve as much as we can for the people using this area over here and accessing the trail here. So this drive-through pretty much alleviated a lot of the burden there, and it allowed us to make the property more usable. But the reason we can't go through a purchase is we can't, because the property was dedicated and donated for a particular public use, we are very restricted in what we can do there. And really, the only thing that we can do there on that property at this point, other than restore it and maintain the retention pond, is to do some collateral use, like a concession stand, that would benefit another use, which is to preserve the public use of the property for accessing Arrowhead Trail and also to have this exercise area. So ultimately, we backed into a lease. The lease provisions are fairly restrictive on the tenant. The indemnification clauses are significant, and of course, Tom's obligations to maintain a lot of insurance are also significant.
I think it's pretty sweet.
I'm sorry?
$2 million.
Oh, you mean the insurance provision?
Right, but the indemnification, there is an indemnification provision that requires the tenant to indemnify and defend up to an unlimited point cost. Now, obviously, insurance would only cover up to $1 million or $2 million in the aggregate, but the indemnity provision does not limit that liability to the to Robinson Family Limited Partnership. Their liability would not be limited.
I understand that. I'm just concerned that the township is getting into a business that really it's not used to. It's not used to being. Do we have any other landlords where landlords are people and on a gross sales approach with anybody?
Not off the top of my head.
I mean, I think this is a great idea. I think it's great for to beautify the township. But there's, you got bikes, you got people coming off the trail, you got a drive-through going through there.
A lot of activity.
There's a lot of activity, and it's a very narrow area due to that detention pond. And I would, I mean, just I'm sure the council must have thought about it before they did this, but.
Well, they did, but it's our job now, zoning hearing board, planning commission staff, to come up with a site that works and is safe and meets all
Who owns the
zoning.
bridge?
Actually, that bridge goes from, I think it goes from property currently owned by Tom to over the bridge and across property currently owned by Tom. Tom's property actually goes across the stream. So that is mostly, if not 100%, on Tom's property.
Yeah, that as Chris mentioned, that would be built and maintained by Tom Robinson, and it's not going to be part of on the actual site for that's leased.
And there would be public easements through that.
Yes, correct.
And would I be able to just come and park there and just go to the trail and not go to the restaurant?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. That was that was the initial intent of this whole project, was to create a public area. And you have to understand also, Tom's property on the other side it's in really nice shape. He purchased it. He took down some of the trees. He planted grass. He maintains it. This property is not an appealing property. It looks bad. But it's not a property that the township has any real incentive to do any significant investment in to restore it. And that detention facility has to remain as a detention facility. Tom's idea of planting unique vegetation there that would thrive in that area, that's also vegetation that's natural for this particular area. He'll create something there that is appealing, and the whole idea behind the cafe really is to use the building for something other than what it is right now. And I think that when you look at the appeal to the public, a lot of it's going to be the access to the trail and the staging area for people who have bikes who want to go onto the trail. I know that the perception here that the coffee shop's going to, is a business that the township's not normally going into. We've tried to create it and maintain it as a collateral use. We didn't want to have an expanded menu or items of that nature, and just more or less to support and be there for people coming on and off of the trail with the restrooms and everything. But I do understand that the site's tight. I don't know that this is, of course, this isn't the final plan, but this gives you the idea of what we're trying to accomplish with the site, with the trail, and then also to transfer that other parcel of property to the township for its needs, and retain a portion of the property, at least the use of the portion of this property, to support some of the interests that Tom has on that trail.
So all that's before us right now, or before the zoning hearing board, is the allowance for a drive-through. It doesn't
Yes.
open the door to whatever they want to put in, or, I mean, they would have to go through every other process.
They will have to be come
beforehand.
back.
It just says that they're not forbidden from doing it.
For site plan approval,
Right.
back with you.
We'll be back to planning commission for site plan approval.
Over
Yeah.
multiple times.
The question before the planning commission tonight is, how do you feel about the drive-through?
About the idea that I drive-through.
I'd like a little more clarification on the use, this limited counter service restaurant. What's the highest use that could be? I mean, are we talking, obviously not Burger King, but my concern is not so much this particular development, but what comes next. It's already grandfathered in for a
Give
drive-through.
me just a second here.
Because I think this is a creative and very much needed use at this site location, being a trail user. I applaud the creativity with the loop road. I do have my concerns with safety and traffic, but as far as the drive-through, I don't necessarily have a problem with this particular use. I'm more concerned about what is the next use, and if someone were to sell the property or to release it.
Before you answer that, if the zoning hearing board would choose to, say, grant the variance, it would be for this particular use.
This principal use, yeah.
Okay, and then what is the maximum that this could be used? In other words, are we talking how many seats?
It's not based
per
on
hour?
on seats. It's kind of based on general service. So the definition reads: a retail use which serves foods and/or drink to customers for consumption on or off the premise that may or may not have seating. It may include accessory wholesaling, manufacturing, or processing of foods, goods, or commodities on the premise. Aside from traditional food service, the definition of limited restaurant also includes coffee stores, juice bars, bakeries, delicatessens, and confectionaries, and made-to-order facilities such as those associated with gas stations, i.e. Sheetz, or grocery stores. Obviously, the coffee shop falls right within there.
Sure.
Is the idea kind of like what they used to use, like farmhouse coffee was for years? Anybody who's lived in the area, kind of, you could come off the trail, get a coffee, get an ice cream or whatever. But now the hope is, I would assume that farmhouse couldn't sustain itself. But if you have a drive-through, you might be able to get enough business to come through there instead, and they can stay open. Just generally speaking.
Because what we don't want is people zipping in, parking, going into coffee, and zipping out, and ending up using 20 spaces along the side for people just going in and coming out for their coffee. The idea, thinking if we can invite them to go through the drive-through and do it that way, it will be less use of the parking spaces for the cafe purpose.
Right. I see the concern is because when you look at it, it looks very much on this one side, like where the Starbucks is right now. And then you come in on one half, and then you go through, and then there's all the parking spaces, and then people queue up to order right on the one side. And that's, I think, that's how it looks. And then the idea that people are parking and then crossing over. So I get where the concern is absolutely about that working out. But that's still subject to approvals, right? That's okay.
Correct.
How much parking would we need if there wasn't the trail capacity? Like if there wasn't the trail parking, what would this use need approximately, and what do we provide roughly?
Our limited counter service restaurant use parking, I believe it's one. So it's 1 per 200 gross floor area plus 1 per 3 outdoor seats.
What's the gross?
1,500.
So 7.5 plus
Yeah.
how many outdoor seats? Let's say a dozen, that's 12 spaces.
And we're at 13 spaces, or 14 spaces right along through this section through here.
So
We meet the requirement for the restaurant itself.
right, so you're meeting the
Exceed.
requirements of the restaurant for parking.
Yes.
However, you can't do the restaurant without providing the public use because it's a lease. So you're kind of, you're really tight. You're double, I don't see double dipping, but you're utilizing a parking space for two uses because you have to. And that's where we're coming to the drive-through need.
Yes.
To limit the users of the coffee.
Let me ask you this question. What if everybody in Trell uses all those spots? You don't get any customers.
Stay up, they used to drive.
Yes.
What if they want to come and sit down and overlook the lily pads or whatever they're going to have in Township Farm?
And that's something that could be looked at whenever Tom develops his property more through there.
Beautiful building, fireplace, looks really nice. I mean, what's the vision here? They see a vision problem just from the township as a governmental entity here. What are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to accomplish a nice restaurant, which is Mr. Robinson's willing to spend a lot of money here and make it a really pretty place, or we just want to park cars here for the truck? What are we trying to do?
I don't think the idea initially was to come up with a coffee shop. I think the idea initially was to come up with a modification of this property to change the way it looked. And what happened with that building that's there, turning that building into something other than what it is, and then looking at that collateral use and what it would do to the property, to the site itself, kind of generated this ongoing thinking where we have and when we originally talked about it, we said we wanted to restore this building and put some type of use there for people coming up the trail, and if they want to look at whatever is planted there and however it looks, they want to get a cup of coffee, use a restroom, and you want to do all those things, but at the same time, it takes space to do it. It could be that is not enough parking space for all the uses at all the times. But what we're hoping for is that a lot of the users are coming off the trail onto the property. People are coming to the property to get onto the trail, we'll be able to park there. If people want to get a cup of coffee and spend time there and there's no parking, well, then they just won't be able to get a coffee and spend time there. We don't expect that coffee shop to do a tremendous amount of volume because it doesn't have the ability to hold a lot of people who drive there to get coffee, other than people coming off the trail. If people want to pull in and get a coffee and leave, that's one way of doing it. But generally, I don't think it's designed to be promoted as a coffee shop. We think the coffee shop part of it is collateral to the property.
Ice cream place?
Well, no,
It is coming off the trail.
we thought of a lot of different things there to do that and to attract people. Ice cream, coffee, sandwiches, things like that. But ultimately, the ability to support a big operation isn't there because you don't have the capacity to store the vehicles that are coming inside.
You do also have, there's a lot of houses across the street, so then it's an area where people could walk down, take a walk, grab a coffee, so it might not be a place where tons of people are going to park anyway. And it's the same thing if you think of where the comparables, where the Starbucks, the bank, the Numus, the cleaners, all those are. I don't think there's any more, I don't know that there's a whole lot more parking spaces there. And people can, you can get a sandwich, you can get coffee, you can get whatever at Starbucks, you can do the same at Numu. There are parking issues there sometimes, but there's no.
There's too much data.
I think the circulation here is of significant concern given the multiple level of users you have with possible pedestrians, many bikes, which is one of the primary uses, if you will, and also cars coming to the drive-thru, which is another primary use. That entrance is difficult. I've never seen I guess it's a right-in, I don't know what it is. It's kind of a 2-lane in, 1-lane out. That's a very odd configuration.
Yes.
So that will not fly with pet as I'm sure you know, Mike. So I'm not sure how we're going to educate users coming in such that short distance, especially down the grade, about 8 to 10 feet. That's not necessarily on our plate today, but it's something we have to look at when we
Correct.
come back in.
Correct.
I think that's a huge concern. And to Mr. Mills' point, circulation around the kind of breastwork, if you will, allowing folks to have at least a passing lane or something to that effect, I think is critical. I would offer that, have you looked at, can this pond be adjusted in any way that you could get more square footage out of the site? If it's never full, is it because we're not cleaning pipes, the water can't get there, or was it simply overbuilt? Did the drainage area never develop as intended? I don't know. It just seems like it's underutilized, and we're maintaining this large dry pond, which allegedly may not have water, and it just feels like it's a lot of circulation on a site that's concerning. There's no real way to get from the bike trail bridge, not a safe way to get to the cafe if you want to go ahead and break your crop. You're crossing possibly 2 lanes of traffic and a drive aisle, as well as if you come in to park for the trail, it's not a very clean turnaround to get back out. So I think that from a site plan perspective, that needs to be looked at. I will say that I'm very supportive of the use. It just needs to be a safe use, which I think you're probably in the very conceptual stages here.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. You think you guys will still do this without the drive-through? If the zoning hearing board shuts it down?
We don't know at this time.
Because one of the things you could do on a circulation, if you could bump the ring road so that you have cars pass through, maybe it'll make it like, I don't think you can make it 2 lanes probably, but just have everything go around, then everything goes, so there's really only 2. You know what I'm saying? I just don't, they can't do.
You mean down here?
Yeah, the
Well,
whole thing.
the whole, these,
So basically, you come around and you never get stuck behind somebody, and then sort of that strange, right in, right, it would
Yeah.
ease up some of the concerns.
You have to come in and go right. Everybody goes right.
Everybody has to go right.
And that really kind of, you got to wait to park for the trail, but at least it's
Yep.
safer. I think the safety issue's paramount here.
But what you're thinking is if we could create 2 lanes down here.
well, I think
people could-
they're saying throughout the whole area.
So if you could dig into that and somehow the stormwater, especially if it's not even being used.
That's my,
Yeah.
Well, because Washington Financial, if you think about that, from the place that has them, everybody comes in and then they park, they all come in, and there's just not that in-out, where there's not as if there's the
Well,
3
they
areas,
all-
and there's
they all
only
go
2.
around, right?
I mean, you pull into Washington Financial, and you go around, and you either take the parking spaces on that little corner, or you go around back and park, and then you go around and you go through the drive-through, and then everybody's coming
Correct.
You
out
almost have
this
to put
way.
an island at the entrance to
Right
force
there.
people to go right and around the whole loop to get to the parking spots so that you can safely exit from the drive-through pickup without going against incoming traffic.
Or if there's any way to push the whole thing up and those parking spaces were on the other side, and then people
Can I-
walk into the building versus they have to walk in.
That's what I was, why does the entrance have to come in right there? Why can't it move further the east? Further-
Over more this direction?
Yes,
Which way?
that way, to the right.
Well, we do have some utility lines along through this section. That's something we might have to be looking at in regard to the entrance.
It's those 2 areas where you see people coming out and people coming in, and then people crossing. And that's the part that I think is how do you get all that done in one trip. But if you can move those on the other side and you push everything up a little bit and have everybody park over there, and then create a sidewalk, you walk into the building. And then when they come out through the second side, and then you would have more of the space there for people coming off the trail.
David, do you have a comment?
No, not anymore.
Gotcha.
About that entrance.
We're getting into the next step.
Yeah, I know, and I have
That's
a
okay.
question about that.
That's okay.
I think, as I said, I love the use. I think it's a creative use. I see the hardship. If this body, recommends it, if the ZBA approves it,
Site plan's next.
site plan's next, but then we get into site plan nuances and what we think is safe versus preferences, what may not necessarily be code related.
True.
And I want to make sure we take the opportunity here while we have the chance at a variance recommendation to, I don't know if we can.
Express your concerns.
Yeah, my legal folks can tell me what's better, but can we harvest any way to have more authority over the overall site plan at this juncture? Or is that something we can't do for our recommendation?
I think you can. You could recommend, if you're favorable on the drive-through, you could recommend certain site plan requirements as a condition of your variance approval.
Yeah, I mean,
Are we, is it our authority to approve a variance? It's the zoning.
Zoning hearing.
So we're really, are we even making a recommendation?
Making a
Or are we just
recommendation.
reviewing?
You're making a recommendation.
if you choose to do so.
You could put conditions on
But
it.
they've also,
And they don't have to-
the hearing boards, we made recommendations for years and they do what they want. So,
Yeah, and that's.
They're an independent body. They can choose to.
I just want to, in case we're thinking of things that may be important, I'd like to consider them. They may not act on them, but it just feels like we need to be able, this is going to take a long time to work out, I think, with staff, planning. It's just going to be a difficult one because of the nuances.
Go ahead.
I think the points that you have brought up are points that will have to be addressed. Even if you don't recommend them, there are things I'm seeing here that I see as being problematic. They're going to have to be addressed. That entrance exit, that's going to have to be addressed. The point you bring up on that crowded area down there, I think that has to be addressed. And I think that, we're challenged on how much space we have to use, but whether you recommend it as it is and say it's fine, we still have to go through other boards, and we're still going to have to get other approvals, and they're going to bring up the same issues. So we're going to have to address those issues one way or the other.
I mean, what we could do is if like you said with your concept saying we could agree that we don't have any, we recommend the use of a drive-through only, but we are not recommending the plan as drawn or as dictated, or we're not making any statement positively or negatively, or we could say positively about the configuration shown if we were worried about saying that, well, they've seen it and they didn't have any issues. So there's a way that whatever language we want to use, we could say that we're only giving the recommendation that a drive-through
Will the planning
variance be
commission
given but
have any
nothing else.
representation? Are you going to attend the zoning?
Seth.
That is?
I will be clear to express your concerns to the zoning
Okay,
hearing board.
so that's,
But, so we're clear, your main concerns are conflict with pedestrian circulation access.
And site entrance.
Site entrance, traffic, circulation, safety. We presume stormwater is going to be accommodated because it's going to be part of the site plan approval.
Right.
But it's really how this works. I have a concern about, which I think you've addressed, Ed, about further uses down the road if someone wants to come in and change it and maintain the drive-through.
The
Which if that's
variance
not an
will
issue,
be
it's not an issue.
specific to
Gotcha.
this,
so it expires.
if it's approved.
It's a one-time approval. If there's another owner of property.
Well, variances will stay with the property,
It's for this use.
but it will specifically be a drive-through as an accessory use to a limited counter service restaurant.
And that's what I was trying to
Very
understand is
clear.
what is the highest limit counter service restaurant?
Right.
That's what I was trying to understand specifically.
If for some reason Mr. Robinson doesn't make any money at this happens to be a loser, and you want to put something a little more new tenant comes
Is
in.
a Subway sandwich shop, is that a limited counter service restaurant?
No,
Other
not
than
considered.
Tom,
No.
has to be approved by the township.
Township.
Yeah, it has
So
to
the
be.
lease is.
Yeah, and the lease is another factor.
If Tom exits the
Because it's,
building.
right.
Well, just to be clear, I mean, there is an assignment clause in
Yeah.
here, and the assignment clause does say that it's subject to township approval, which will not be unreasonably withheld. So I don't want to, I mean, just for clarity,
So it could be
if Tom
somebody
wanted to
that's
assign it,
financially, that's a clause that really should be in the full discretion. I was really concerned about who was there. But secondly, I mean, the other thing about it, who's paying taxes on the property?
No taxes being paid. It's tax
They'll never-
exempt.
they'll
It's tax
never-
exempt.
But you're leasing to a for-profit entity.
Within the confines of the donated and dedicated property
Yeah.
act, so we are maintaining the contours of the use, legal use. But the rent that
It's a-
goes to.
It's an interesting issue from a property tax standpoint. I question whether that should be a governmental purpose.
Well, for example,
We wanted to buy them.
Is it
I can,
is it
like,
similar to state authorities where they have concessions within an
I don't know.
arena or a
well,
stadium?
South Park, for example, there's private vendors down there that run businesses that are not being taxed. It's a county-owned, tax-exempt property.
Yeah.
Does that mean traffic fees and all that stuff are also waived?
Waived.
For us, and
we're
we're not incurring them either.
But the question before you is simply, do you feel comfortable recommending to the zoning hearing board that there be allowed to be a drive-through at this site for this cafe and coffee shop?
And this staff saying what? You think it's a
I
good
think we're
idea?
okay.
Why are you okay when you're the ones who's
Well, based on the requirement to obtain a variance, their hardship to us is presented by the fact of the stormwater facility being their hardship and the drive-through providing the alleviation of that hardship.
And we're not approving the site plan.
No.
It's just a variance at this stage. We'll have to get into the site plan approval.
As long as we
next
have
step.
enough, authority to really look at that site plan from a safety perspective, because we're literally partners in this now.
Right.
And we have an even higher level of reason to make sure this is a very safe site. I mean, I don't want any issues.
And I think, per staff's comments in their review, that's item number one is the planning commission is recommending, but planning commission site plan approval and building permit approval is required. So it needs to come back. It's got to be in regard to a safe.
And I understand you want to get the variance before you start investing money in design and make sure that it's even worth going through that. I get it.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we're not forfeiting anything here tonight with respect to site plan approval, making sure we're able to really nuance this when it comes back in, because there are some challenges.
If I'm the township and I understand the mission, I guess my concern is we're not really making any money off this. We're providing this as a convenience for our residents and for the trail users, correct? Why do we need a drive-through? I mean, if somebody wants to take their bike off and go down the trail, we're not trying to compete against Starbucks. So why do we really need a drive-through?
It's a good question.
It really kind of comes to support the use of the building and keep it really a viable business.
So that from your standpoint?
Yes.
From Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Why does he want to put $250,000 in?
And I don't think that the goal here is, I mean,
He wants to break even.
yeah,
Do something.
He has developed a lot of real estate in the area where he's overinvested. He's done, I mean, I think what he did with the Voice Road Schoolhouse, what he did with the classroom down on Campoline Road. I mean, he does have a personal interest in the community, and he does have a personal interest in this property as important as his other property. And I think this all started out more or less as a way, how do I get this looking a different way? And it matched up well with the township's desire to have Tom's other parcel. So ideally it would have been a swap, and Tom can do what he wants. He could put underground storage tanks there and build on it, but it didn't work like that. So we bent around the restrictions to come up with a use that can somehow make it viable. It's a lot of money that will be invested there, and there will be a lot of maintenance. Ongoing maintenance annually is going to be significant. But I think what the goal here is to create something that's self-perpetuating, ongoing. It's in the family limited partnership, so it doesn't go away when Tom dies. The obligations are continuing on thereafter. So the goal here is to create something that isn't necessarily for profit, but at least is going to support itself and will allow for that property to have a different look and appearance without being an ongoing annual cost to Tom.
So when the cafe concept came to fruition or came to everybody's thoughts, was the drive-through always there?
No, but the problem with the cafe concept is you create people coming into the cafe, parking and going in, and there's that in and out that's going to take up spaces, but it's also going to be that activity for that small area, that small building made it make a lot more sense to say, what if we create the drive-through that'll let people come through, go, get their coffee and go. If people want to use the trail can stay. And of course, if people want to use, to buy their coffee and sit there and look it over, do whatever they want, they can do that as well. But as this process started, really the drive-through is what created the way to operate both the concession coffee area as well as the area for the benefit of the Arrowhead Trail.
You don't think the zoning hearing board is going to say you created the hardship by doing that? I mean,
We didn't create the hardship of creating the impediments to using the property. I mean, the building itself, to put money into that and to restore, it's going to be expensive. To knock it down, I guess, could be something that you could do. But the thinking there was turning this into something that was more of an attraction for the benefit of a lot of different people. And I know that there's a concept that you create a coffee shop, you create a massive amount of traffic, but there are a lot of coffee shops in this area. We're hoping that this is primarily used for the support of the Arrowhead Trail, not necessarily to invite people to have coffee and hang out, but the people who want to come through, get their coffee and go, aren't going to be an impediment to their use.
I would say the Arrowhead Trail being used a lot in the winter. This can be open 12 months, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm an avid biker myself. I don't think I go out after December 1st or before April 1st.
Well, but the other side of that is this: there are limited access points, and the ones that there aren't that large. The one down the street to this direction has impediments related to a bridge. This is just one more of a few different access points that could support the Arrowhead Trail. It doesn't create a huge amount of parking, but it's some, and it does create some collateral opportunities for for enjoyment, for either whether it's coffee or whether it's just using the area that is being dedicated for exercise or fitness along the trail. I mean, it's just a larger use on that piece of property that's currently not used, and it does help take a piece of property that really does look bad and restore it to something that's a little bit more viable.
Could Mr. Robinson just take his own property and do this on a full, like, get rid of that whole part and do something nicer? I know he tried doing the restaurant, which was super, but I guess PennDOT,
it really even wasn't bad. That was going to attract so much traffic. The size of that, it was going to be too much. We would have had turning lanes in, and the investment would have been significant. But it would have been nice to have it there. But the limitations of that road make it difficult to put anything that's going to be a big attraction.
So what's his intent with his other properties if he wants to just do this, just wants to sit on them, let them?
I think he would develop it something in a lot smaller format, not necessarily retail or restaurant, maybe something professional offices that is more suitable for that location, that doesn't create a huge amount of traffic in and out. And ultimately, how hard would it be for Tom, I don't know, to scoot over onto the other side of that property line and create additional parking? It wouldn't be difficult. The thought here was this is enough parking and use to make it suitable, but going across that border it makes it different, because now you do have a piece of property that's owned by the township and a piece of property that's owned by the township being used for a dedicated property act use. It gets so complicated.
And I guess, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and I guess really the question, right now, the way I'm seeing it is, do we have an objection to drive-throughs? You know what I mean, a drive-through in the township, and I think we've kind of indicated that maybe we don't, because Starbucks has a drive-through. Just even in that area, Washington Financial has a drive-through, so we're utilizing them. They don't what? You're right, but I'm just saying, if I'm looking solely at right now why I would or would not be okay with the drive-through, which is I think the question that you had. I'm saying if you agree that there's a hardship and you agree that they didn't create that hardship, then the next question in my head at least is, do I have some reason I wouldn't want to see a drive-through here? And my thought process is that if it provides for better sustainability for a business to be able to get through, like you said, those winter months and things like that, and we haven't given up any of our ability to change everything else, and we're just saying whether we are okay with recommending it. The way that I just looked at it was, do I have an objection to the drive-through to Starbucks? I don't. Or do we? Do I wish it was a little different? Yes. Do I wish it turned out a little better than it did? Absolutely.
Is there, if you have to do the trail parking in order to receive the lease on the land, is I mean, are we talking about possibly signing the parking spots for trail use only between certain months, or no? We just let it all just kind of share out. If the cafe takes it, the cafe takes it, and you're not parking there for the trail, even though that's the primary driver for the development.
Well, I don't know if that's the primary. The primary development
What's the primary driver for the property acquisition or lease?
I think in the township buys it, it was an eyesore piece of property that, we had a private resident who wanted to invest his dollars into and help restore and make it a more aesthetically pleasing site. That was attractive to council.
Sure. Anything else? With that,
Let me ask you one thing. Okay, so say we recommend this, ZHB recommends. Can we restrict them on the circulation pattern? The site plan approval?
If that's part of the variance decision is, if you, planning commission and zoning hearing board grant the variance with specific conditions relative to circulation, then yes. What specific?
Okay, so that's where we do have to.
We'd have to put a condition.
that's what I'm trying to say, and this is not a fully baked concept, so to look at it as it is difficult to put precise conditions.
You were exactly right. So if we approve this and we don't want conditions, it sounds like to me, if they
Well, then-
approve without conditions,
Well, then it comes down to good
It comes
site
back to
planning,
us.
zoning, HOP, traffic conflicts, pedestrian vehicle conflicts.
I guess theoretically, those conditions could come back into play whenever you're reviewing it for site plan.
If we
And with
approve
the approval or denial then.
or recommend,
I think, because you're not really, they're not asking for anything else in the site development.
no.
They're not.
You want conditions today that we.
The time now.
Sure we have. Now's
The
the time.
variance gives us the authority to add conditions above and beyond what
Yes.
is in the zoning.
And I want to be sure that I'm not adding something so broad that's easily talked through in site design, I'm being candid with you. And I want to make sure it's not so sharp that we can't cover it in site design if there's some situation we have to live with to make it work.
So the main conflict is all the activity occurring right at the entrance with the.
I mean, just a few points. Activity at the entrance, circulation around the basin. I would prefer to have bicycle parking on the other side of the park, on the parking lot, so that, people parking their bikes are not going across 3 lanes of traffic. I mean, things like that pedestrian cycle circulation to get to the cafe are very important.
And I was going to say, bicycle, you're coming down along and through here, you're coming through this. This is really the only crossing that's taking place for bicycles and trail people, so that concrete walk goes directly to the front. It's not the idea is you're coming over and walking through here and coming this direction. We can have signage along through there. Please proceed to the dedicated crosswalk.
Could we say just that if we're recommending approval of the variance, subject to the express approval, and it would be express approval of the Board of Supervisors of the circulation, parking, and, circulation, parking, trail access, and bike access by the board, because then that defines what we want. We use the words express approval.
And
I would never want to take the words express
Michelle,
approval.
it would be you, planning commission, approving that site.
Right.
This doesn't go to council.
Good.
Right, you're right.
I guess if you deny recommendation or approval of the site plan, then it loses the variance.
Right?
Yeah.
In theory, that's what it comes down to.
But we need to be able to do it
Yes.
on the basis of what's in the code.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into a situation where it's an appeal and we lose it on the basis of the code.
So you're saying you could feel, we could fit within the code on those other issues?
Yes.
And you say I would have.
I would never approve your variance if you would have showed me this plan
Right.
in final site plan. So we would have lost that condition. So I'm trying to maintain the, lack of a better term, power and authority over the site design at the variance level without, hindering you and making you have a final plan here to show us a variance. Because that plan, I can't approve it. I can't really consciously look at that and say that's acceptable. But I agree that in layman's terms, that the drive-through would be something that could be accommodated there if it's a safe. That's my
Understand, yes.
not the board's.
So it's something like subject to the express approval by the planning commission of the parking site,
I like it. I don't know how that would be
Use the
legally
terminology.
upheld. I'm sure Mr.
Well,
Pastelis,
we-
you're not going to help us with that, but.
It's very crystal clear that the township can add conditions to a variance approval above and beyond what is expressly written in our zoning or any other code. Now is the powerful time for the planning commission to tell the zoning hearing board if you're okay with a cafe, coffee shop having a drive-through, as long as pedestrian access,
Could we,
conflicts.
Entrance.
yeah, I mean, we could say something like we express approval that the planning commission to ensure adequate, safe, pedestrian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And kind of,
So what we need to nail down is, what are your main site plan concerns? The Valley Road,
Coming in off of Valley Road.
Site entrance.
site entrance,
Site circulation,
Circulation.
pedestrian vehicle
Safety and-
conflicts.
Yeah.
and pedestrian circulation, so
What else?
vehicular and pedestrian safety.
With or without a bike.
yes,
Correct.
bikes, cyclists.
Bicycle parking, Rocco?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can accommodate them, but yes, I mean, all that is in play, but I think that the circulation is the most significant. Right. And, you know, to be able to not have a single lane of stacking that.
We don't want pedestrian vehicle conflicts.
Right.
Is basically what you're saying. And then we want that entrance to be safe.
Because I think the vision, to use Mr. Mills' word, is that this is a use that's to be driven by the trail. And then we're also saying, okay, we can provide the drive-through to give relief because we understand it has to be a fully functional business. So it should really be trail-driven, cycle-driven, and then, you know, parking for the trail, and then the use of the coffee shop is something that is there because we understand the economics of business. And therefore the drive-through. We get that.
What about express approval of the planning commission of all issues related to site access, pedestrian, biking, car, and traffic patterns with respect to
Circulation.
ingress and egress? Yeah. Express approval of the planning commission of all issues related to site access, circulation issues, pedestrian, biking, traffic patterns, ingress and egress.
Basically, the whole conceptual section.
Minus landscaping and stormwater.
No, I think that you're heading in the right direction. Can you do it one more time?
Subject
Make
to
sure
the
you're
express
getting this set.
approval of the planning commission with respect to all issues arising out of or related to, that's my favorite legal words.
Good.
Chris knows that. All issues arising out of or relating to, and then the laundry list. So what did we say? We said site access, circulation,
Circulation.
or traffic,
Yeah,
car,
sure.
pedestrian,
Correct.
biking, patterns and circulation.
I think we,
Yeah, and essentially, we're making this recommendation, the zoning hearing board and their solicitor should be able to craft it in their opinion. This is just our right.
If they choose to do so.
If they choose to do so.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know.
Between now and then, I'll give
Outside of the condition, I think this is a great idea. I think it's great that Mr. Robbins is willing to contribute to the township like this and create, you're exactly right, an eyesore and turn it into something. It's just that, our concern is, I think, safety for everybody.
Are we doing too much of this site?
That's the concern, yeah.
like, if we get all this safely done, awesome, let's do it.
Right.
But it just looks a little bit too much right now. I mean, that's,
Well, I was stopped at even Mr. Salepa's comments at the beginning. You got that exit on the drive-through van right into two oncoming rows of cars. You had me an hour ago on that. I couldn't get past that with the other conversation.
That's why I'm wondering if moving that entrance a little bit right might take away that issue.
Closer to,
Or move the building 12 feet east and have the cars come to the side and then go back into the parking lot.
there's some thought that needs to be put into that. That's obviously.
And the sequence of events,
Yes.
if we make a recommendation to approve the drive-through, the then goes to the zoning board next week. After that, they would prepare the final site plans. Does it come back to us?
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Stops, and then it will go.
Stops.
Oh, that's it?
Stops.
Done.
So council doesn't have to approve it.
Correct.
That's why that's a good one.
And do you think that?
And we got 5 critics of the site plan right now, so.
Do you think that? Do you think that language protects us enough and gives us the authority to kind of chew through these elements that may otherwise not be, nuanced in the code?
Yeah, I mean, the goal was always so that if we would shoot it down
Yeah.
and they appealed, that we would have broad enough language that they would say, we met the code, and you guys can impose additional conditions.
That's correct.
Right.
Perfect.
And even through comments from yourselves, we'd still even come back to staff and staff and township consultants to review the site plans even before it got into much more detail. So there's going to be a lot of communications, especially with staff.
And then I would
Regarding this plan.
even with the recommendation, and we recommend approval of the variance to allow for the drive access only and subject to. I mean, it can't be used only subject to arising unrelated or expressly permitted. I mean, there's a lot there that would be hard for them to come back and say, no, this was a broad variance allowance, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Are we ready to do this?
Shall.
May I have a motion?
So I will recommend approval of the variance requested by the Thompson Robinson Family Limited Partnership only with respect to the allowance for a drive-through, but subject to and restricted by the express approval of the Planning Commission of all issues arising out of and/or related to site access, traffic, pedestrian, and bike circulation, ingress and egress.
Vehicle circulation.
I thought I did.
Traffic.
No, that's not
Pedestrian.
I'm just concerned about that, the vehicle circulation.
One lane.
So just say traffic, vehicle, pedestrian, and bike.
Gotcha.
Okay, is that okay? Can you read that back?
I can't.
Only with respect to the allowance for a drive-through, but subject to and restricted by the express approval of the Planning Commission, or by the Planning Commission of all issues, arising out of / related to site access, traffic, vehicle, ped, and bike circulation, ingress and egress.
Great.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hand over my office.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to planning portion, miscellaneous issues brought up by commission staff.
I have none.
Anything else? Make adjourn.